Hey, it's Jack, no K, Jack in the attic. I'm going through a little shawl phase. I don't actually anticipate this to be any sort of phase. I think I've always liked all types of scarves. Now I just get to make them myself, so the world of possibilities has opened up to me. Anyway, I recently had cause to collect a bunch of patterns for any small triangular or crescent shaped neckwear, basically. And I may as well share the results with you. I think they'll be helpful for anyone looking for single skein sock yarn patterns. These are all for single skeins of sock yarn, except a small number of patterns that are for a different yarn weight that could be easily adjusted. I am always looking for single skein sock yarn patterns, and now I have at least 40. So I will start the knit patterns first, and I will start the crochet patterns at this timestamp. We have over 40 patterns to go through, so let's just get into it. I realized I was putting all of the titles of patterns down under the captions, and I'm a captions user, so I'm gonna put them up here and then pictures. First up, we have the Foundation Kerchief by Em Hanna. This pattern I have actually knit a few times, at least once as written and then a few times with some variations. This is a really good beginner pattern, and then you can make adjustments as you learn more techniques. I love this pattern. Next up is Larch. I love the eyelet design here. The description also calls this a scarflet, which I love. Based on the description, this is a quick and easy one. I think this would also be a good introduction to lace knitting. This one has been in my favorites for a while, and it is free. A lot of these patterns are free. I may not remember to mention it every time, but this is the Fleurdelise one-skein triangle shawl. It has the most beautiful lace pattern, and it looks so light and airy. I really like this pattern. I would like to make one of these very soon. We're really flying through these today. Next up, we have the Rialha Shawlette. I have actually made this one. I did end up holding some yarn double. I just thought it looked nice that way. You can absolutely knit this with one skein of sock yarn. You do need to pay close attention to the pattern instructions though. I did not. I missed a note that specifies to make sure to save half of your yarn for the lace section. So I did not do the entire lace section, but I still think it came out quite nice. So this is an Audrey Borrego pattern, so it is free. All of her patterns are free. A couple of hers will be in this list. Next up is Perlnicki. This is a, I believe, seed stitch triangular mini shawl. It's a flat triangle symmetrical shawlette with purl stitch. I have made one of these. This one was a lot of fun to make. I really like the texture of it. It does work up a little bit smaller than like stockinette just because of the stitch pattern. So that is something to be aware of, but I think it's worth it for the texture. Next up is Reyna. This is another free pattern. This seems to really make the most of a single skein of sock yarn. It has a lot of airy lace sections in between some more solid sections, which seems to add a good amount of length. So this also looks very light and airy and good for the warmer months. Next we have Simple Shawl by Jane Hunter. This is another free pattern. So this is a garter stitch triangular shawlette with eyelets and a picot edge. It does say the eyelet section is optional. This looks like it would be a good beginner pattern as well. Up next is One Irresistible Skein. This is a crescent shaped shawl. I do love a crescent shaped shawl. And this one also has a lot of eyelets. It says it's a 10-row repeating pattern. We have the one-skein triangle. From the description, Not a purl stitch in sight, all garter stitch with an eyelet pattern. This looks like it is worked diagonally. Similar to the Reyna shawl, all of those eyelets add a lot of airiness and drape and length to the shawl, really maximizing the single skein of yarn, but again, work diagonally so the look is different. Next up is the One and Done. This is written for a single skein, but it is also written for a specific type of yarn. It does note in the description that there are specific directions in the pattern if you aren't using the specified yarn or if your gauge is off. So this is written for one skein, and there is troubleshooting baked in case you run into any issues. This includes a lot of dropped stitches, so this is another light and airy one. It specifically says, if you have made a shawl with any type of increases, then you are ready for One and Done. So another good beginner pattern. I really like the look of the drop stitches here. We have the Skein Wonder. This is another free pattern, and this is a garter stitch shawl worked from corner to edge. I really like the look of the increase edge. I think that's very cool. This was written to showcase variegated yarn specifically. Now we have the Age of Brass and Steam Kerchief. This one is written for DK. I think this would be easily adjustable to use fingering weight. You would obviously have to adjust your needle size and it would end up a little bit smaller, but I think it would still be a good size. This is also a free pattern. So this is a stockinette with garter ribbed eyelet sections, and it specifies you can have more or fewer repeats of the stockinette and eyelet sections to make the kerchief or shawl as large as you wish. So that's why I'm thinking this would work just as well with fingering weight yarn. You just go until you run out. That is going to be a theme overall. This is the Ritual Kerchief, and it is our first bobble siding of this list. So this is specifically written to use one skein. It is written for a specific type of yarn, but it says it can easily be knit to any size using any yarn. So it is knit end to end with I-cord ends for easy tying. The all over bobble pattern is really cute. I have actually never knit bobble stitch. Is it called that? I've never knit bobbles. I think the I-cord ties at the corners are very smart. Sometimes the smaller kerchiefs are harder to tie, especially if they are knit at a tighter gauge. Up next, we have the Ashton Shawlette, and this, the lace on this goes crazy. We all know I love a shawlette with pointy bits. So this top-down triangular shawlette, per the description, can be knit in fingering weight yarn, but may also be knitted in lace weight, sport weight, or whatever weight you like. It will just change what needle size you need to use and the size of the finished piece. But it is written for one skein of fingering weight yarn. We have the Mara pattern. This is another free pattern from Audrey Borrego. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I've been saying it a lot lately. This mini shawl has knit, purl, and lace texture, the description says. It looks like eyelets are involved. It also has I-cord edges. It's worked sideways, so you can use half of your yarn, get to the center point, and then use the other half, so there's no guessing. That's very convenient with pieces worked sideways. Next up, we have Close to You. This is worked kind of diagonally from the point to the wide end. It has a zigzag border with eyelets to form a triangular shawl. Up next, this is so cute. We have the mouse print shawlette. It's got a little footprint border. How cute is that? This is written for sport weight, but it's another one that I think could easily be adjusted to fingering weight. How often I use fingering weight and sport weight interchangeably, I will not admit out loud. It's often. This one's also free. The next pattern, these are surprisingly by different designers completely. I just happened to find them back to back. Whispering Whiskers one-skein Shawlette. This has cute little paw prints, and it's written to use only 304 yards of sock yarn. It looks like it's knit at a pretty loose gauge because it ends up pretty big for one skein of sock yarn. It says it's a great project for beginning intermediate lace knitters, as the main body of the shawl contains a triple yarn over on the purl side. This one has written instructions and charts. Up next, we have the Lily Crescent Shawlette. This is from Yarnspirations, so it should be another free pattern. It is! I had to check. I like the shape of this one. I like how they have it styled with the shawl pins. As much as I love a shawl that you just drape on and then it's there, I do love something that sits pretty sturdy, you know, and isn't gonna fly around. This seems to be that type of pattern. I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but it will be on the screen. It's the Serpy Shawlette. This has such an intense crescent shape. I love that. It's knit neck down. It actually uses short rows to achieve that crescent shape. It also has two different lace charts, and it says they're interchangeable, so you can change their order as you like or use either of them. Our last knit pattern for this list, I'm going to mispronounce this one too. It's Sackless Shawlette? Seekless? It's Estonian. It's the word for adventure in Estonian. So this looks to have panels of garter stitch and then large lace panels as well. I think the looser gauge and the lace achieve quite a sizable accessory from one skein of yarn. I'm just staring at the pictures on Ravelry. All of the example pictures show a quite diaphanous shawl, but then up close it looks really cozy. For one shawl made of one skein of yarn, this has quite a few features. And now we're going to move on to the crochet patterns. So I have just as many of these. I'm sorry if I'm not staying too long on the ones you want to get a closer look at. I will, of course, have everything linked in the description below. It'll link directly to the Ravelry page for these. And they will be in the order that I discuss them in the video. Hopefully that is helpful. Starting off, this is one skein scarf shawl Cordelia. I need you to try saying that out loud so you know that I'm not making this up. That's actually really hard to say. It does make up for it by being quite lovely. This is an asymmetrical scarf pattern. It does still end up being a triangular shape. I'm counting it as a shawl. So this is a 12-row repeat, so you can make it any size you want depending on how much yarn you have. It is written for a single skein though. Next up we have the Scout Kerchief. It looks like this is crocheted from corner to corner, and it does also include instructions for how to adjust this to any size you want, again based on how much yarn you have. It, as written, only uses about 200 yards of fingering weight yarn. It looks like there is a paid version and a free version of the pattern. This one is written for worsted weight, but once again, I think by adjusting your hook size, you can adapt this to fingering weight. Because written for worsted, it only uses 180 to 220 yards. So I think you could still pull this off with fingering weight, you just do more rows. This is the Hemingway single skein scarf / kerchief. This has a nice mesh texture. I love any triangle shawl or shawlette with like a spine detail. I know that's not really the correct wording there, but I like in the center of the triangle when it has like a specific line. down it that is intentional. Up next, we have the Corvus Bandana Shawl. This uses the crowfoot lattice stitch. That makes sense with the Corvus name, crowfoot. I have never heard of that. It looks lovely. Next up, we have the Bird's Eye View Bandana Cowl. This is a cowl, but it has the triangle shape of a Shawlette bandana kerchief, the thing we're looking for in this video, so it felt appropriate to include. The description says, this was inspired by the perspective of a bird looking down at the windows and lines of the cityscape. It looks like a large section of this is a mesh stitch, and another large section of this has, they're not eyelets in crochet, like a chain space. Now we have Fortune's Shawlette. This is also a pattern with a paid version and a free version. It says this was inspired by the ubiquitous corner to corner stitch. That's what I'm wearing right now, is a simple corner to corner triangle shawlette, but with a lacier, more open, summer ready stitch pattern. I love that. This is another really efficient use of a single skein of yarn. All of the air takes up a lot of space. It makes it so much larger. And who can be mad at a delicate lace pattern? Next up, we have the On Point Shawlette. This is another nice, open, airy, lacy shawl. It's another pattern that you can kind of make to any size depending on how many repeats you do. Apparently there's also a jumbo-sized version written of the same stitch pattern for a larger accessory. Up next we have Lazy Waves Shawlette. It is described as dense and mildly textured, and it's written to showcase slow color change sock yarn. This also has specific instructions on how to use the amount of yarn that you have if you have more than one skein. We have the Market Day Shawlette. This one has a repeating pattern and a picot border. I really like the border on this one. This also looks like a really good size for crochet and one skein of yarn. Up next we have the Pink Delight Shawlette. The edge of this one is so detailed. So it says the body is a simple, easy to memorize row repeat, and then it has a nice lace border as well. It also says that you can crochet this with any yarn at any gauge. Up next we have Any Season Asymmetrical Shawlette. I love the texture of this one. I can't tell exactly what stitch pattern this is, but the texture of it looks so nice. This also has a free version and a paid version. Okay, here we have the Seaside Shawlette. This is a double crochet mesh pattern with a fan edge, and the top has a curved wing-like shape from the Ravelry description. I do really like the edge detail on this. And this is a free pattern. It is only available on the Wayback Machine, but it is there. Now we have Winter's Comfort Shawlette. This looks to be quite a long one. It's a cross between a scarf and a shawlette. And it has an option for adding beads. This is another free pattern. Of all the crochet patterns on this list, this is the one I'm most likely to make soon. This is top of my list. This is Isabel's Crescent Shawlette. This has a super cool filet crochet moon phase design on the back. It's just so cool. Moons on the back, stars in the front, and this is a long piece that can be worn as a scarf or tied in the front and worn as a shawl. Up next we have Rose City Shawlette. This looks to be another quite elongated triangle. The description says it was inspired by rose blooms in the late spring and summer, specifically in Portland, Oregon, which is the City of Roses, you know. This uses half double crochet stitches as well as repeated sections using the sprig stitch, which I actually also don't know. We're running into a lot of stitches I have not used before. Makes me want to look up all of them and practice them. Now we have the Nautilus Shawlette. There is a lot going on here. There's a lot of intricate lace. It's a crescent-shaped shawlette with openwork stitches, designed to be an all-season accessory. We have the Summer Twilight Shawlette. This has several different stitch patterns. It's a semicircular shawlette with a kind of ruffly edge. This is also very open stitching and lacy. This would be good for the summer, as the name states. Here we have Finding Balance. This is a crescent-shaped scarf. It is a scarf, but I feel like it can be worn like a shawlette. This is knit from one tip to the other. It says it has an easy 2-row repeat and then 2 options for the edging. It also includes a stitch chart. Up next we have Dragon Tail Neckerchief. The shape of this one is so interesting. This is a free pattern with spiral increases, and one of the example pictures, it looks like, includes buttons, which I love buttons on a neck accessory. Next up we have the Moss Lace Shawl. The lace on this one is so lovely. This is very open and drapey and lacy. I will say the yardage it calls for is 440 to 460 yards, but it also says one size but customizable. I feel like this would be pretty easily customizable to get down to that single skein yardage. It's not off by very much. It says the shawl consists of 3 different parts and all parts can be used for a custom size shawl. Next up we have Draco Shawl. This has quite a dramatic pointed edge. This one is also beaded. I see all beads as optional. That may not actually be the intention. Even patterns with no beads mentioned anywhere, beads are optional. The last pattern of the video, I have actually tricked you. This one is a knit body crochet edge. So this is the Rosine Shawlette. It has a garter stitch shawl body. The descriptions in French and English are different. It has a large crochet border. So I did save this one for last for all of you multi-talented fiber artists out there. That is the end of our list. I know I'm going to be wearing a lot of little neck wear pieces this spring and probably even into the summer. Whomst among us has not knit or crocheted a tiny little triangle to wear in various ways? Certainly I'm not alone in that. I hope you found this list maybe helpful. Did you have any favorites? Let me know. Have you made any of these? Also let me know. There were so many patterns that I saw and just couldn't include because once it got over 40, I knew we had to kind of calm down a little bit. So if you do make any of these, please let me know. I want to see how they work up so badly in different yarns. And with that, I will leave you to your crafting. As always, take care of your joints, go live your best yarny life, and I will see you next time. Bye.